When we talk about Japan, the story often sounds like one of decline, right? An aging society, a shrinking economy. But I think that's completely the wrong way to look at it. Japan isn't so much declining as it is, well, it's a time machine. It's giving us all a high-definition preview of a future that pretty much every developed nation is heading towards. So let's dive in.
11 million. Think about that number for a second. That isn't a jackpot prize. According to a major study, that's how many workers Japan is projected to be short by the year 2040. It's a truly staggering figure, and it points to a crisis on an almost unimaginable scale.
And look, this isn't some abstract problem for economists to debate about in the future. This is a crisis that's happening right now, and it's affecting the very fabric of daily life. We're talking about everything from a critical shortage of caregivers for the elderly to not having enough truck drivers to deliver packages. Japan is really confronting what it means for a nation to start running on empty.
So how in the world did we get here, and more importantly, where is all this going? Today, we're going to break down this great demographic inversion, see exactly how it's putting the economy under so much strain, and ask the big question, can robots really come to the rescue? And finally, we'll look at what Japan's story tells us about the future for the rest of the world.
To really understand what's happening in Japan, you have to start with the basics of population science. It really all boils down to a pretty simple but incredibly powerful set of numbers that can literally dictate the rise and fall of nations.
So here it is. The magic number for any society is 2.1. That's what's called the replacement level fertility rate. It's the average number of kids per woman needed to keep the population perfectly stable. That little 0.1 is there to account for people who don't have children. The thing is, for decades now, since the 1970s, Japan has been living far, far below that crucial threshold.
And it's not getting any better. In fact, it's getting worse. In 2023, Japan's fertility rate hit a brand new record low of just 1.20. That is not a small dip, it's a demographic chasm. And when you have way more deaths than births year after year after year, your whole society starts to invert. A really cool way to measure that inversion is something called the dependency ratio. It's actually a simple idea. You just take the number of people who don't work, so kids and retirees, and you divide it by the number of people who are in the workforce. That number tells you how heavy the burden is on the people who are actually working. And as you can probably guess, with fewer young people and way more retirees, Japan's number has been climbing to totally unsustainable levels.
And this just shows you the sheer speed of this change. Get this, back in 1935, less than 5% of Japanese were over 65. By 2025, it's 30%, and by 2070, projections show it could be nearly 40% of the entire population. To put that in perspective, the transition from an aging to a super-aged society took over a century in France. In Japan, it happened in just 24 years. Unbelievable.
Okay, so we've got fewer babies, a population that's aging at a record pace. What does that actually do to one of the biggest economies on the planet? Well, the consequences are profound, and they're already being felt everywhere. There's a term for this. Economists call it demographic drag. It makes sense, right? With fewer workers making things and fewer consumers buying things, economic growth becomes incredibly difficult. Projections show this drag could shrink Japan's real GDP by a massive 20% over the next 50 years, compared to what it would have been if its workforce wasn't shrinking.
And this pain isn't spread out evenly. It's hitting the most critical, labor-intensive sectors the absolute hardest. Just look at nursing and caregiving. The demand is just exploding as the population gets older, but there simply aren't enough people to fill those jobs. You see the exact same crisis in logistics and construction. The basic services a modern society completely depends on.
And if you want one single image to capture the reality of this, this is it. This isn't just data on a spreadsheet. This is a real person, 86 years old, still out there working, delivering packages because there's literally no one else to do the job. That is the human face of Japan's labor shortage.
So, when you're faced with a challenge this massive, what do? Well, Japan is turning to what it does best, technology. The entire nation is betting big that automation, robotics, and AI can help fill the huge gaps left by a disappearing workforce. But can they really?
Japan is basically trying to walk two paths at the same time. On one hand, you've got this huge push for robotics and AI, which they see as a force multiplier to make every single remaining worker way more productive. And on the other hand, there's a very cautious, kind of conflicted, but necessary opening to immigration to fill the most immediate labor gaps. And that, of course, challenges some long-held ideas about cultural identity.
And this Robot Revolution initiative is incredibly ambitious. I mean, the goal isn't just to put a few more robots on assembly lines, it's to weave them into every single part of society. We're talking about deploying robots in nursing homes and hospitals to assist with care, boosting productivity everywhere from factories to convenience stores, and using AI to mitigate labor gaps all over the place.
To really truly grasp how unique Japan's situation is, it helps to zoom out and compare it to a country on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, India. This contrast shows us two totally different futures unfolding at exactly the same time.
And wow, the numbers just make the divide so clear. Look at the median age. In India, it's super young, around 29 and a half. In Japan, half the population is over 50. This gives India what's called a demographic dividend, a giant youthful workforce that's ready to power incredible economic growth. Japan, as we've seen, is in the exact opposite phase, demographic drag.
But here's the fascinating twist. While their paths look so different right now, everybody is ultimately heading in the same direction. India will also get old. So the great lesson from Japan for a country like India is that you have to use that demographic dividend wisely. You absolutely have to get rich before you get old.
And this crisis goes way beyond the economy or social services. It actually strikes at the very heart of national security. The pool of young people who are even eligible to join Japan's self-defense forces has collapsed from 17 million down to just 11 million today. This forces a massive, and I mean massively, expensive shift toward unmanned drones and automated defense systems because there just aren't enough people.
So what we're seeing is Japan navigating completely uncharted territory. They're creating a blueprint, really, for a future that's defined by a smaller, older, but maybe a much more automated society. It's a grand experiment in how to manage national contraction, and it leaves all of us with a really critical question. Japan is living the future today. Are we ready for when it becomes our present?